What is up, ladies and gentlemen? Khord here. So, in response to my original build of what I was looking for with Arcane Orb, I decided to do something as well, where I'm going to take this build, crit hit, and crit damage with high intelligence, and I'm just going to show you a couple of different ways to utilize it, since people are arguing that the old style does work. And that's true, it does, just not near as effectively. And that's why I was kind of branching out into other abilities, trying to figure things out. And most of that is to just make it easier for you guys. If there is an easier build when it comes to crit hit and damage, I would much rather you guys use that than try to force a build that doesn't necessarily work as well. So, what I'm going to do here is, as you can see, I'm just kind of breezing through these elites with Static Orb. This is the original build that I was running before. But instead of Crystal Armor, I'm running Mirror Images. Those are interswappable. I mean, honestly, with the higher damage now, you may actually want to run Crystal Armor. I ran into an Elite pack as my first pack that had return damage, and they were wrecking me pretty hard with my Static Orb hitting so hard. So, let's go ahead and see if we can't find another Elite in here, and I'll kind of show you that it is still viable. And this is Act 1. With the same stats that I had in the other video, and well, kind of. I did replace, in order to do this, I replaced my chest piece. Instead of using the Tal Rasha, I went with a high intelligence base chest, and I found some pants a little while ago after having been playing around in the act and everything else. And I went ahead and took them. Even though I lost a crit percentage, I gained, 144 intelligence. So now I'm sitting about 1749. That put me at 36,000. I'm sitting at 19.5% crit with 194% damage. And so, I mean, Act 1 is a joke in itself. You could do this with a lot less gear than what I have right now. But I just want to use this as an example to show you that, Hydra does still work, it'll still shoot at things, but as you can see, it's not shooting very fast, it doesn't tick very fast, but it'll still shoot pretty hard, hit pretty hard. It does not take your crit damage as its own. It'll take crit hit percentage, so it'll crit more often. Oh, awesome, an event I hate. So it'll crit more often for you, but it's not going to absorb the crit damage that we have on the character. As you can see, right there it actually crit for 12,000. Shot that one. There you go. You see it doesn't hit very hard at all. 12 Ks are about the extent of its crits. Granted, that's still not bad, but when my Static Orb is hitting for 80,000 on a crit, or 42,000 or 70,000, 12k, I just feel like it's wasting our stat. So, if you do want to run this build, you can still do it. As you can see, I'm still holding things off. You can still AoE things down pretty well. It's incredibly slow, so make sure you are very, very, very good at aiming your shots now, so you don't miss them, because your attack animation is much, much slower now, and so is your attack speed. So the animation being I'll actually explain that. So attack animation is the character actually throwing it, so the little arm movement that I have there, versus having to resummon Hydras, really slow. Attack speed is how many of these things I'm actually popping off. So just be aware that if you are going with this build, everything is, basically 10 times slower. I mean, it's almost ridiculous. Doesn't look like we have an Elite in here. Alright guys, so I managed to find an Elite pack out here, and luckily enough it is the Reflect Damage, as you can see. Oh, got Jailer attached to him as well. So I'm basically doing the same kind of stuff that I was doing before. You can see the damage is just out of control that I'm taking right now. And I have to be careful with Static Orb now, because when I crit for 74k, I take, like 2,000-3,000 damage from that. Oh, those flowers might explode on me. So I'm hitting orbs. I'm doing the same thing I did before, but, you know, in my opinion, Hydra isn't hitting near as hard anymore. So, while it is viable, I would say probably you can kill these things faster if you went a little higher on crit damage and then just obliterated them after stacking a 5-stack. But, you know, at the same time, you can use this build if you want to. Personally, I really miss this build with attack speed, but it is viable. I mean, you can do it. I'm overgeared for Act 1. Let's see if I can go into Act 2. Alright, so this was a common place for me to farm. Let's go ahead and run the build again. Didn't have much issues here when I was running my attack speed build. You know, snakes are a bit of a pain. These birds dropping down on me were a bit of a pain, but other than that, oh, and we've even got an elite right there. Let's see, I saw plagued. Not sure what else is on there. Alright, we got plagued, vampiric. That's going to be a little tough with the minions, giving them some return on health. Got some arcane going on there. Got to stay out of the way of that. Alright, so basically the same kind of method, you know, jumping around, but you have to be really careful on your attack animation. You don't want to get caught casting and then get smacked, and you need to watch if you are killing these snakes. You can kind of see where they're invisible. So, drop the Hydra over here, start throwing some orbs out. I can probably get that one down. Alright, got my mirror image up again. Dropped that one, so don't want to stand in that. This build is also going to be a little tough because you have to keep your attack, your run speed up. Right now, I'm only running 12%. Anything with fast attached to it will run faster than me right now. And honestly, there aren't that many things out there that have just flat-out run speed that are going to be good for this build. You might be able to find a couple. I haven't looked into it very much, but that's going to be what you're looking for if you want to run this build. And I mean, this is taking much longer than I remember. My Hydra normally had this thing down pretty fast, and I didn't even have to throw that many static orbs into him. And it's not because you might be thinking, well, he's plagued, so Hydra does less damage. In the patch, they fixed that. They no longer have increased resistances based on what they are. So everything does full damage now. Where did this guy go? There he is. Pop some mirrors out there. And that's the basis of doing the build in Act 2. So, I mean, it is possible. It may not look all that hard to you guys, but really that's a lot harder than it used to be. That is how the build will go. You need to just max out raw damage in order to increase your Hydra, which means that you're going to have to get a lot of intelligence, and you're going to have to get a lot of critical hit. Honestly, you could sit at like 190 to 200% critical hit damage and be fine, but that's the basics if you want to do the kite build still. Swap the talents over. You just saw me kill a pack in Act 1, Act 2. I can do it in Act 3. I'm not going to show that in this video. The biggest issue I run into with this is because repair costs are bigger, the kite build is ineffective because when you're new at it or you run into a bad set of elites, you can't kill them, and you end up dying a lot, and you're trying to, you know, corpse kill, and that just doesn't work anymore. So this is going to be a very iffy build. If you guys want to go with it, go ahead, obviously. I'll go over what the skill sets are for this build, but be aware that it's very fragile. You don't put out a lot of damage, and you have to be willing to kite for a long time now that Hydra does a little less damage. So let's go ahead and go in here. Galvanizing Ward, the reason for that is the health regen may seem worthless to some people, but personally, when you're not getting hit for 5 to 10 seconds, you're regenerating, 1,500 to 3,000 life, which is a quarter of a potion, which may be just long enough for, to keep you alive through reflect damage or something like that, to hit a health globe. I run Illusionist, which every time you take 15% of your health and damage, it'll reset your teleport and mirror image ability. And I run Glass Cannon, which is 15% increased damage and 10% increased damage towards you. So I believe I said 15% increased damage, but 15% of your damage is increased and you take 10% more. I run Magic Weapon with the 15% increased damage, the energy with the Force Armor, because in this build you're not looking to get resistances, you're looking to stack health and make sure that things are still hitting you for at least 15% of your health so that your teleport and your mirror image can reset, which means that you're not going to be tanking mobs. You're going to be running from them. You're going to try to, if you're like in a bad position, you're going to try to get hit by one mob and teleport off with your abilities reset. I run mirror images with the 5 mirror images. Once again, this is also interchangeable with crystal armor as far as I'm concerned. I've run both ways, diamond skin, crystal shell. I just call it crystal armor because it's easy for me to remember that way. It absorbs 21,000 damage, and that's kind of nice. If you run into a place where you get really just kind of cornered, you can pop that, take a hit, and teleport away. I run Teleport with Wormhole, which means you need to mash the hell out of Teleport whenever you are teleporting to get away from things. Venom Hydra is going to be your staple ability with Shock Pulse, and the reason that you run this way is Shock Pulse will go through enemies and be able to clear larger packs. Like, let's say they have Illusionist, it's easier to get rid of some of those things with Shock Pulse. Venom Hydra, because the pools cause more damage over time, and it seems to stack up. But anyways, Poison Hydra is probably your best Hydra, and that way you also have kind of a triple layer. You've got Venom, when they initially fire, the Hydra's doing fire, and then when you use your Shock Pulse, you're using lightning. So that's kind of a rundown of the skills, guys. If you do want to run this build, feel free. I have to say that it's much more stressful now, and you have to live a lot longer in order to be effective with it. If you guys do want to see more of this build, I can go ahead and keep swapping builds and show an Obliterate versus the Kiting versus, I guess, an Arcane build, and as I get gear, I'll even show you guys how to tank on a wizard. I'm not going to tank as a primary, but I'll save the gear and show you guys. So, this was in response to a lot of people saying that you could still kite, and they didn't like that I was changing things. So, it's true. You can still run this build. It's just not going to be as effective as before. So be aware of that, and be aware that repairs cost more. So if you're not comfortable with it, it's going to be hard. Anyways, guys, make sure you're hitting that like button on the video if you like it. Please leave comments. I will respond to them, and I try to adjust and do things for you guys. Don't forget to hit that share button. Share it around. Make sure people are getting to see the channel. And as always, I will see you guys at the next video. Khord out.